Starting off in the number 5 spot of the best ultra budget gaming speakers is the Edifier G1000s, coming in at a price tag of $59.89. If you want to check out any of the 5 speakers in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But let's talk about the Edifier G1000. Now, firstly and most importantly, the sound quality. The G1000s are extremely impressive for the size. The tweeters do an absolutely excellent job of doing higher frequencies. Trebles are incredibly crisp and clear, something that is definitely hard to find on a very budget speaker. But as you would expect, only being 2 tweeters, there's basically no bass at all. So do not expect bass from the G1000s. They definitely get more than loud enough for a sitting desk experience, but they will not get incredibly loud if you're trying to listen to them in your room rather than just sitting at your desk. Sound quality in-game is surprisingly good. The speakers are really crisp and clear, so the directional sound with these speakers is pretty much as good as you're going to get under $100. Even without bass, gameplay sounds are really good. Again, due to being able to hear all of those little noises very crisp and clearly. This is a very bright profile for these speakers for sure. As for inputs, this either uses USB Type A or a 3.5mm cable, and those are like fully connected. You cannot disconnect them. Now, as for build quality, these have a nice brushed metal on the speaker, a glossy front with some integrated RGB with a great overall size to fit on even the smallest desks. And that is definitely a big factor. If you do have a much smaller desk, you don't want to have your speakers taking up a lot of desk space. These are very small. Now, the only thing that I don't like about these speakers is that they have non-detachable cables, which do limit the maximum sitting width of these speakers. That being said, it is still pretty good at 52 inches speaker to speaker. So in most situations, that's going to fit you perfectly, but there it is. Now, as for controls, on the cable itself, you have a volume wheel, a button to switch the RGB color, and a button to toggle between different modes. So pretty basic controls there, nothing special, but you get what you pay for. Overall, if you want some small tweeters that aren't great for listening to music due to the lack of bass, but perform fantastic in game, these are a great pickup for only around $60. But with that, let's move on to the number 4 spot, which is the Sanyun SW208, and these are the 3-inch variants. Coming in at a price tag of $69.99. The sound quality here is actually really surprisingly good with an asterisk. There's one thing that they could have done to make this even better. Now, for the size and price, they get quite reasonably loud and only just store it at almost 100% volume. Now, bass is also quite impressive here for the size of these speakers, being rich and full. And while it's not going to shake the ground like a dedicated 2.1 system would, it does sound great for listening to music. Now, that asterisk. While the quality of the loudspeaker is actually quite good, the EQ for the treble needs to be increased significantly more. And while this does have onboard treble and bass controls, even with the trebles turned all the way up, it still sounds a bit muffled in those higher frequencies. And this is not something that it's the loudspeaker's fault. It's something that is after creating that speaker, how are they going to tune it? They should have boosted those trebles up a little bit more. So this is something that you can benefit from by getting an EQ app. And if you got that, well, then you're a lot more golden. Definitely something I would recommend that if you do want to purchase these, get yourself a OS-based EQ setting or software. Now, in-game, the bass on these speakers really helps the emotional side of the audio quality, giving you more immersion and just overall enjoyment. At least in my case, I really do like a lot of bass in my games. Just really makes me feel like I'm there in the battle. Spatially, these are good, but again, they do lack that EQ tune with treble, which once done, definitely adds to that spatial awareness. Now, as for inputs, you either have a 3.5mm connection, a micro USB to USB, and you also get Bluetooth here, which is an added pro if you do want to be able to not only hook this up to your console or your PC, but also hook it up to your phone when you want to. That's definitely a big pro. Now, the build quality of these feel really solid, but not incredibly heavy. The outside of these is all textured vinyl covering all sides. The loudspeakers themselves do have a nice look to them, and overall looks fairly expensive. Also, you get foam feet on the bottom that are present, making it nice to not scratch up your desk and things like that. It's overall just good. No problems, but build quality is just what it looks like. Now, one of the cool things that I did mention is that on the right speaker, so on the right-hand speaker, on the right side, there are 3 dials to adjust volume, treble, and bass. Also, that volume knob can switch between different modes, whether that's, your Bluetooth, USB, or that 3.5 millimeter auxiliary cable. So you get all of that functionality, which is awesome. Again, even if you bump those trebles all the way up, it still needs to be a little bit more, but it is super nice having those tuning capabilities right on the right side speaker. Overall, if you want smaller bookshelf speakers that pack a punch in terms of audio quality and don't have a subwoofer that you need to find space for, these are a great pick if doing a small amount of EQ tuning isn't a problem. But with that, let's move on to the number 3 spot, which is the CyberAcoustic CA3610, coming in at a price tag of $49.99. Sound quality on the CyberAcoustics is pretty middle of the ground, and that's why these are in the number 3 spot. While they don't do anything amazingly well, they also don't compromise on basically anything. Now, this has a dedicated subwoofer. This is a 2.1 system. This gives it significantly more bass, but not insane amounts of bass here. The tweeters also get very, very loud, but have just good sound recreation and not having the best high frequency response in the world. The more crispy trebles definitely suffer more here. However, gameplay with these is very enjoyable due to the subwoofer, giving that extra bass. And if you preferred your music or games louder, these definitely will do that, especially for the price. That being said, in-game spatial awareness is not good as the other speakers on the list due to not having the greatest high frequency response. It's definitely harder to pick up those footsteps or other small, subtle sounds spatially than the other speakers on the list that have, well, that more crispy, brighter sound profile. As for inputs and outputs, you get a 3.5 millimeter connection, as well as 2 3.5 millimeter outputs for your aux and headphones. Build quality is pretty much exactly what you would expect here. The tweeters have a nice looking stand made up of basically entirely plastic, along with a backing that is again plastic. The front of these have that nice piano black gloss plastic. That is nice that it's not flat, because flat piano black tends to get very dirty, but this is fairly vertical, so it tends to be a little bit cleaner most of the time, so it does look nice. The subwoofer is a downwards facing subwoofer wrapped in almost entirely in vinyl, which is nice. It also does have nice long legs, which, well, you would expect for a downwards facing subwoofer. Now, as for controls, this comes with a puck that has a few different settings, an on and off switch, a dial to adjust the overall volume, and then a volume wheel to adjust the bass. Overall, if what you prioritize is a full rich sound with a dedicated subwoofer and are just okay with the higher end frequency response or the trebles, then this is a fantastic pickup for under 50 bucks. But with that, let's move on to the number 2 spot, which is the Creative Pebbles Plus 2.1 system, coming in at a price tag of $49.99. Sound quality on the Creative Pebbles 2.1 system is the best balanced audio quality under 50 bucks. While the Pebbles themselves have really great crisp trebles, the small subwoofer adds just that little amount of bass that the Pebbles are lacking. While the subwoofer does not shake the floor or even add a ton of bass, it definitely adds more to that fuller sound. Although not quite as deep as the CyberAcoustic CA3610s, it definitely is still a really nice addition to have that sub, just to add a little bit of bass. However, in game, these sound great due to the really bright, clear Pebbles. Spatial awareness is fantastic, and the overall gaming experience with these speakers is really quite amazing for less than 50 bucks. So to sum up the audio quality, while you don't get a ton of bass, you still get really, really clear trebles, a very crisp sound. While the CyberAcoustic speakers definitely lacked on the trebles and definitely have more bass than these I think have a better, more polished soundscape. And while you do want more bass, you don't suffer on the higher frequency treble responses. So as gaming speakers, these are the better speakers, but it does come down to personal preference. If you just want more bass, well, you just want more bass. Now, as for inputs, you get a 3.5 millimeter connection, and that is all you get. The Creative Pebbles probably have the best design for budget speakers, as they are unique and have a modern design that doesn't look over-styled. The tweeters are shaped like round balls with the face cut out, which I think just look pretty awesome, especially for the price. They definitely look more expensive than they are. They are almost entirely made of plastic with a nice rubber ring around the bottom, piano black plastics around the tweeter itself, with a kind of gold silvery speaker color, which looks really nice and stylish. The subwoofer is very small and is downward facing with rubber feet wrapped in vinyl. However, it is quite light and significantly smaller than you would expect when you see like pictures online. It is definitely a small subwoofer. I think it's maybe the smallest subwoofer I've ever seen. It's miniature. As for controls, there is a volume knob on the right pebble to adjust the volume, and then underneath that same pebble is a gain high-low toggle switch, which is actually a nice addition. Overall, if you don't want to compromise on clear, crisp trebles, want great spatial awareness in game while still getting some bass from that small subwoofer, this is the best 2.1 system under 50 bucks. But with that, let's move on to the number 1 best ultra budget gaming speaker, and this is the Acoustic Audio AA2170, coming in at a price tag of $69.88. The sound quality on the acoustic audios is by far the best on the list. The low frequency or bass response here is what I would consider entering into the true subwoofer category. Rich, deep, loud bass is present due to essentially having a true subwoofer. The tweeters, while they don't have the most amazing high frequency response, they're still very, very clear and have a lot of adjustability with both bass as well as treble without needing an aftermarket EQ. These also get extremely loud, so if you did want to listen to music in your whole room rather than just a sitting experience, you can for sure do that as well. There's also no distortion, even at ear-shattering volumes, which is honestly very, very impressive. In game, there is a great mix of trebles for spatial awareness, as well as deep bass for more of that emotional, immersive sound quality. Overall, this is the best audio quality for around 70 bucks. And honestly, the system that surprised me most. I was not expecting that out of this system, but quite good. Now, as for inputs, there are 2 RCA inputs. This also has Bluetooth as well as an SD card slot and USB. So if you did want to do either of those, you can. This also comes with an RCA to 3.5mm cable as well as a regular RCA cable. That's a very nice addition. Very nice. Now, the build quality for the tweeters are lighter than you would expect for the size of them, but they do have nice foam feet. The front of the tweeters is then plastic with that piano black around the speaker, with then a metallic gold on the speaker itself, which is actually very nice, especially for this price point. The subwoofer itself is nice and heavy, wrapped in vinyl except for the front, which again matches the tweeters, having that plastic in the front with the gloss black accents, and then again, that metallic gold. Now, as for controls, this is also the best on the list for sure. This comes with a remote with a ton of different controls on it, from treble, bass, volume, mode selection. It just does a really great job, as well as play and pause, skipping tracks for your Bluetooth settings. Then on the subwoofer itself, it has some controls on it physically where you can adjust the volume, play and pause, skip, rewinds. You can change the inputs and stuff there. So there's a lot of controls going on here. Also pretty easy with that remote to tune your EQ or your treble and bass. It's also quite easy to see what settings you're on because there is a small screen on the front of that subwoofer, which is actually really, really nice. Overall, if you want a genuine 2.1 system with impressive bass while not compromising on volume, higher frequency response, or functionality, this is the best ultra budget 2.1 gaming speaker system. But again, if you want to check out any of the 5 speakers in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But if you have a little bit of a bigger budget, maybe 100 to 150 bucks, well, check out this video right there. That is the budget gaming speakers variant. This is the ultra budget gaming speaker video. So if you do have a slightly bigger budget, that's the video right there. But this is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.